Well, I'd like to call to order the May 7th Township Board of Trustees meeting. Would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Kelly, could you show that Treasurer Carcone is on vacation, and other than that, we are all present. Okay. Moving on to the approval of the consent agenda. Everyone had a chance to take a look?
Yeah, I'd like to pull off two items for discussion. The Riverwood Bill of Sale as item 11A and the zoning report for 11B.
11A and 11B. Okay. Okay, anyone else? Motion be in order with them amendments or pull-offs?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda with 11A and 11B moved to the end of the board meeting.
All right, we have a second.
Support.
All right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to announcements and communications.
I have a couple of little announcements. One is the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution will be holding a rededication ceremony on May 20th in the New Hudson Cemetery. So if anybody is interested, they love anyone who can to attend. And I also want to let you know if you we have an election coming up August 7th, and if you would like to register to vote, if you have not registered to vote, last day to register is July 9th. So that's all I got.
Okay. Right, John?
I got a few things. Last Monday, I attended a presentation by the Regional Transportation Authority, and they're basically looking for 1.2 mills, 1.5 mills from the four-county area, Macomb, Wayne, Oakland, and Washtenaw. And they basically went over what they had previously sent out by email to anyone interested, I guess. But you can find out more at rtamichigan.org. All the information's on there. And I also come across Edison's offering a tree planting effort, dollar for dollar. And I know they'll match every dollar we put up to $3,000. But Edison has destroyed a lot of trees on Pontiac Trail and elsewhere. They look horrible. And I wondered if we ever want to think about planting them, we can get Edison at least to pay part of it. Then lastly, I want to remind everyone that June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is our 10th annual Kite Festival. It's the first time we had a Friday night. It's going to be primarily an adult thing from 6 to 11. There's going to be a beer tent. There's going to be lighted kites. And we hope to see more people there. And of course, at lionevents.org, they're always looking for volunteers. And that's all I have.
Very good, John. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I do have one announcement, and I don't want to single people out, but this is something that's kind of important. We have a lot, and I don't want to miss anybody, volunteers in the township. And the volunteers, they do so much work that it's incredible, and I know the Kite Festival is one of them, whereas these people have been meeting for about a year, and pretty much sometimes twice a month, sometimes once a month, but they've really done a really good job volunteering, and these are all volunteers, none of them get paid. So that's a big kudos to them. And I also have one other I'd like to put out there, is we have a a resident of the township that takes it upon himself every year to clean the sides of Milford Road, and I don't know if you've ever seen him, but he's been on the side of the road in the springtime, and he puts his own time and effort into it. His name is Robin Allen, and for quite a few years, he's been cleaning Milford Road for about 2.5 miles by himself, and he's done an incredible job. Well, this year, he called me and he asked me, he said, hey, I finally had some volunteers to help me, and he said, don't mention my name, but I can't do that. He said, but please give the others thank you for helping me, because they did a tremendous job. And if anyone had seen Milford Road, they really cleaned it up well. And one of the businesses was Continental Aluminum, put in a day's worth of help, and they cleaned that road. And the Spark Plugs Car Club went out there and put a day in cleaning that road up. And I just wanted to thank all of the volunteers that we have. And I don't want to miss anyone, and I know we have way more than that. But these are the ones that really, I actually see them out there. And thank everyone for, volunteering wherever you can. It's just super important to the township with the funds we have to take care of things. And it's a pleasure that people do that on their own. And thank you for that. Okay, do we have any more? Anybody else? Okay, moving on to call to the public. This is when you can stand up and we can talk to you about things that aren't on the agenda. Come on up. We do want to try to keep it brief, a couple minutes, and also your name and address to the record, please.
Yep.
Okay.
My name is Eric Stubenval. I live at 52651 Aspen Drive on Phase 3 of Lion Ridge. Good evening. I'm here basically again to express concerns about your approvals of the Hidden Forest development, specifically regarding Lion Ridge, which is on the north side of the development. Tonight marks 9 months since I spoke at the review of the Hidden Forest development here. During that meeting, I expressed major concern of having a completion of our properties directly tied to a future development, which had also been raised during the Planning Commission meeting of July 10th. The crux of the concern was no timeline being provided for completion. As a reminder, in my comments, I pointed out that Leslie had come out and visited my lot prior to August 7th and indicated at that time that our yards were not graded correctly. The result has been major flooding in our backyards. She expressed the need for Healy Homes in an email to Green Tech Engineering and Mr. Healy to fix the issue with the regrading of our properties. Green Tech and then Mr. Burke on the August 7th meeting acknowledged the grading issue and tied the fix to the development of Hidden Forest. To this fact, I don't believe anyone who has visited my property regarding this issue could dispute any of my claims. Along with the grading issue, I, along with several of my neighbors, have come in and brought up the issue that Healy Homes sold all of us our lots as premium wooded lots up against a property that could never be developed. Now that they have purchased the land, they have changed their tune and proposed perimeter trees along the north and west property line as indicated on the approved landscape plan to be installed prior to the earlier of the following two events within 18 months of engineer's approval or on-site utility as built, or prior to the township's granting of the final C of O for the adjacent Hidden Forest home site. So now, where we are today, this timeline immediately pushes us into 2019 and possibly beyond that as they develop Hidden Forest. So I bring these up again tonight because I've learned over the last 9 months that this is not an issue that is specific to Lion Ridge with these builders, nor to the township board. Residents from multiple developments have come in and raised concerns with Healy Homes not finishing projects properly, leaving the residents stuck with the burden of fixing a multitude of problems. In my neighborhood, several neighbors have brought construction issues to my attention. As is written in all of our contracts, there's a warranty window for having these issues fixed. After taking occupancy, have been brought such issues that Healy, that go as far back as 2013 when residents were bringing these issues to Healy Home within 1 year of their purchase, and they're still waiting for fixes. So this is something that seems to be perpetually repeating itself. In advance of this board meeting, I did email Trustees Blades and Enlow expressing my concerns with the lack of a timeline for our issues to be remedied, and invited them out to my property to see the issues firsthand. Under their advisement, I also emailed you, Supervisor Dolan. I sent those emails on the 24th, and Mr. Enlow came out and walked my property as well as the neighbors on Thursday, the 26th. As elected officials, I'm increasingly disheartened that you seem to be more concerned with approving more and more special land use developments than you are of the concerns from the constituents who have seated you here tonight. I can't express earnestly enough that it is time for a fundamental shift in paradigm. I've been to multiple meetings and have heard members of this board claim that these developers are pillars of the community working hard to sustain its beauty and build responsibly. I do not know if you visit all of the communities that have expressed their concerns, as Mr. Enlow did with me a couple weeks ago. If not, and if only viewing plans on paper, I can certainly understand how you might view these future developments as a good path forward. However, if you were to come visit the impacted areas in our neighborhood with beautiful open spaces that the HOA now has to contract out reseeding, sodding because there was no grass, I think you'd form a completely different opinion. So I'm providing all of you with an open invitation to come walk my property. My neighbors who have given me permission to speak on their behalf also extend that invitation. It's time for the developers to finish the jobs that they have started before they're allowed to move on to new developments in the community. That starts with the Planning Commission and then this board. It also falls to your inspectors having a more critical eye placed on the construction taking place. I personally have fixed over 350 nail pops in my house, and I've only been there since the end of 2015. A failure to hold your developers accountable will result in a situation where you have more residents like me coming in with the exact concerns I present to you again today. So in the specific case of Lion Ridge and Hidden Forest, I think it's only fair that a resolution to our issues now be separated from the future development of the property to our south. This resolution should be provided to us in writing with details of what processes will need to be followed to have all the fixes finalized. I began raising my issues with Healy Homes at the beginning of 2016, brought them to the Planning Commission in July of last year, obviously came in here in August of last year, now stand here nearly 3 years after the completion of my home without a solution in sight. So I and my neighbors really should not have to wait until 2019 or beyond to have full use of our backyards. We all have kids. They like to run around. Playing in slop is not something that we should have to deal with. So I ask you, what do you feel is a fair timeline for us to receive a written proposal for the work and set dates for the completion? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
Patrick Grollo, address is 60772 Shady Creek Drive. It's in South Lyon, Michigan. I was here last month to discuss the acquisition of a new land that was bought by a person that doesn't live in the county. Discussed about the blight that the neighborhood was now experiencing. And what we're looking for is a resolution from the township. I know that 2 citations have been written for 2 40-foot shipping containers, but there are still 24 other violations that I found just by doing a Control F on your ordinances. Now, if this extends another month, I will assure you I will read both of those ordinances and I will find more. My lawyer is already aware of it. My lawyer has already been in contact with Miss Carolyn, and I have documents. Basically, it's a 1-page summary that I can leave with you. This document has been given to WDIV. I am preparing to do a story with them. I have an interview with them next Tuesday, so the township can be publicized in a negative opinion, in my view. I did speak with Mr. Dolan at the beginning of the meeting. He mentioned to me that there are things going on in the background that are being worked on. The 2 citations we are thankful for. That should help with some of the blight. But I've taken photos of every single residence on the street, their front yard, their backyard, their side yard, and if they have an extension of woods, I've taken photos of that. And what I find is that none of the neighbors have 7 different types of trailers on their property tucked in their woods. There's construction trailers, snowmobile trailers, motorcycle trailers, landscape trailers with large metal containers, of which he uses to store and block things. Behind those are 15 55-gallon drums of metal containers. We have no idea what's in those. They ding, they bang, they pop. I hear it all the way until 11 o'clock at night because of thermal expansion from the sun. He has a 100,000 watt tandem axle generator that you would see on a construction site or outside the building here to power it, parked in the woods. He recently had a truck that last month when I stood here, I complained that he had an online business selling things on Craigslist. Those items have now moved from Craigslist and have gone to an auction site in Lapeer, which I have found and have documented that he has that. He has other things now where he doesn't use his name or he doesn't use his phone number, but he's selling wood stoves. I believe that those 15 55-gallon drums are used to construct those wood stoves. I've created an alias, emailed him to ask him if they're for sale, and plan to meet him. So there's a real problem here. All of this stuff has escalated within 8 months. It's gone from a couple of things in the backyard before the renters moved in to a whole colossal of junk. And it looks like Beaver's, east over at our property. So what I'm asking for is, what is a reasonable level of blight? And I compare that by measuring it against all of the other houses on the street. And I would say that 7 different trailers parked in the woods with building supplies, other things that I say that he uses for his other business, other than just being a rental. His card is right here. It clearly shows that he does something with residential building or construction or something else, in addition to it being a rental property. That should alarm all of you. When I had a rental property in Royal Oak, I had to go through yearly surveys. The township came and inspected my property. I had to make sure that my rental property was held to higher standards than the actual property I lived in. I'm really shocked that the township doesn't have any of those types of laws in their ordinances to protect those people, because those people have no fight. They can't say anything. They're locked into a lease for 12 months until they can get out. None of this stuff was there when they signed the lease. None of this stuff was there when since I've been living there. It's all shown up in the last 12 months. Now, I'm the type of person that drives for results. I've written Mr. Dolan a couple emails. I've written Mark a couple emails. I've called up here. It's helpful to get a little feedback back saying, hey, we're working on stuff. 2 citations have been written, because I'm going to keep escalating this. After speaking with Mr. Dolan, I've kind of toned it back a little bit. But on Friday of this week, I was going to work with my lawyer to generate a lawsuit against the township. I may postpone that because of Mr. Dolan's comments. I may postpone the interview that I have next week with WDIV. I don't think the township would like to have any of that negative publicity on TV for Metro Detroit. But if I get a little bit of feedback from the township indicating that you're actually working on stuff, the neighborhood may be a little bit more patient and willing to work with the township, understanding that it is a township, that you guys have processes, that there's rules that you have to follow, that things have to go through a procedure. We all understand that. But to blatantly not respond to any emails or pick up the phone and give a call only frustrates the neighborhood, and we're going to continue to escalate this. So I'd really appreciate if the township could take a look at the 24 violations that I've sent Mr. Dolan, that I've sent Mr. Snyder, and start helping to address those. Because if you don't, then I would argue, why are they on your books? We should remove all of those. All 24 of those. They should come right off the ordinance. But I don't think you're going to do that. But that would be my position if you don't enforce it. And I'll help push that. Because I'll keep coming every Monday of the first of the month, if that's what it takes. So thank you. And if you would like these as a summary, I'll gladly leave them with you so you can see them. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
Hello.
How you doing?
Cindy Thompson, 26727 Wilton Court. And I am the president of the Villas of Crystal Creek Condo Association. We're kind of a unique development that is half condos and half houses. I'm sure maybe not all of the board knows about the history of Villas of Crystal Creek, but there is a history. Anyhow, so we've finished our building, and now we are starting to, kind of turn things around for the villas. And we had a reserve study done to let us know what we were up against. We found out that our road is private, and the reserve study indicated that coming up here within the next 10 years, we're going to need about $300,000 to replace our road. that is alarming for all of us. And we have signs up that say our road is private, but that does nothing. People just drive right through. We have multiple signs up. That hasn't helped. I have actually followed people through right to their driveways and confronted them and said, do you realize you are driving on a private road that, we have to replace for you within the next 10 years? And this person said, I don't care, doesn't matter, I'm going to keep driving on it. And part of the problem is Villas of Crystal Creek is right at off of Milford Road by 11 Mile, and Spalding is a dirt road that runs right behind us. So to cut off the Milford Road and 11 Mile corner, everyone will cut through our development so they don't have to drive down the dirt road. So I guess why I'm here is I would like to know from the township what our options are for stopping the public use of our private road. None of our taxes are prorated because we, have a private road. And, there was a gate at one point at the back of the subdivision, but that got torn down. So I guess what I'm looking for from the township is exactly what can we do? Can we re-gate the community? Can we put up one gate? Can we, what would be involved in this? And what kind of support can we get from the township to keep our road private, if in fact we have to be responsible for it? What are our options?
Is that road part public and part private?
No.
I can't remember if the front part was taken. Now, one time you did have a gate across it.
Yeah, there was the gate at the back.
Yeah, I do remember that. It was taken down, I think, because I think what's happened in the township is these connection roads, the fire department has found it that if someone behind the gate had a heart attack or something, or they needed help, they couldn't get through the gate, to take care of the people. And that was the biggest safety issue, that there's been a lot of asks for gates on the connecting subdivisions, and they've been against every one of them, just for the reason of the seconds it takes. If somebody has a heart attack and a truck gets hung up on the gate in the back and then has to go around to the other entrance, and that time span has been they worry about that every second.
That's a very real problem that has happened in our development because of parking up in the front where the ambulances couldn't get through. So they did have to go around to the back to come in, and thankfully the gate wasn't there. However, we've had semi-trucks, gravel haulers.
I understand that.
DTE came through the other day with 3 of their huge, great big trucks. It's not a road made for that.
Can the HOA put up like no through trucks or no through traffic signs or something like that?
3 signs at the front and 1 at the back.
Okay.
The signs.
We can talk about that. If you've got your name on the record now, and then we can try to figure if that could even work. We'll have to go through the fire department and the police department and kind of talk to them a little bit.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Julie Foley. I live at 59701 Sunridge, and I have 2 very quick comments. I'm just curious about the property on the north side of Pontiac Trail between Glenlee Court and Pontiac Trail. It's the Burtow residence and I believe horse barn. It's been about 3 years. It's a little upsetting. I did hear you, Mr. Dolan, discussing it earlier, but I wasn't really aware of the facts, and I was just curious how long the burnt-out property is going to exist there.
I wish we could answer that question. We've been working on that also. It's a little tough scenario between the owners and
The
insurance companies and the detectives, and there's some things in the background of that one also. We've been working hard on that, though, and I even think you worked on that a little bit, Bob, haven't you? That burned down. We are trying to figure it out.
Very hard to get response from people. You make calls, get return calls, and I feel your pain on that because I drive by it every day.
Every day.
Every day.
We get a lot of calls on that, believe me, and
Okay.
we're trying.
The only thing I've heard about it is chatter from neighbors or other social media, so I just wanted to get an official answer from the source, so I appreciate
You
that.
live near that home, or?
Yes, I am just south in Martindale Meadows,
Okay.
and I drive to Kent Lake Elementary every single day.
Yep.
I drive into town on the weekends, all the time.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Bob, I live right there. Not on the property, but I live next to it. And it is now, somebody's now dumping on the property. So there's a pine tree that has been just dumped on the other side of the gate. So if you wanted to look into that, just to add to your list.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks for that.
yeah.
The other item too, I just wanted to make one quick statement on behalf of being a resident, a big-time volunteer at Kent Lake Elementary. I'm sorry I'm not able to stay the entire meeting tonight. I have to get someone to bed. She's already napping. But the Cambridge of Lyon, the application for the variance, I sincerely wish that.
We can't really tell, we have to wait till it comes up.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that okay? Okay, thank you. I just hope that when the board votes tonight, that all of the recommendations are considered the way they were written. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come up? Okay, seeing no one else, let's move on to reports. DDA?
Good evening, everyone. I have about 6 items to report on. First of all, on April 26th, I attended the 33rd Annual Economic Outlook presentation. This is conducted by Oakland County. They pay University of Michigan on an annual basis to take a look at the economic outlook for the entire community. And I know John Dolan attended that with me, as well as 3 of our DDA board members, and it looks really good. The Oakland County is doing fantastic as we rebound from the recession. The economic outlook indicators are showing that we're going to see increased businesses opening in the county. The county is working very hard at attracting companies in emerging markets such as technology and, of course, manufacturing. So everything looked really good in the report. However, one of the biggest concerns and challenges is with our labor shortage. And it's enough of a problem that they believe that it could negatively affect our economy. So the good news is that a lot of our technical schools are working very hard at putting together skilled labor programs to help address these manufacturing needs. And the state of Michigan is looking to attract more of these technology companies to come here and hopefully create the type of jobs that are both skilled trades and those type of jobs that have like a higher pay and require more of a college education as well. So it's a really, it's one of those things where it's a good news type of a situation, and yet the labor shortage is going to continue to be a problem until they can start to address that. So it's a little bit behind the 8 ball, but it's good to know that they're working on it. I do have copies of that report. I have hard copies available, but I can also provide it as a link on our website because they have it online as well. So I just want to give you an update on that because it's pretty important. Also, I want to give you an update on roads, in particular the intersection of Grand River and South Hill. So the Road Commission has confirmed that that project is currently planned for late May 2018 bid letting, with the start date sometime in June. So as they get closer to that date, we'll be able to announce when that work will begin. The project will include paving of South Hill down to Magna's second driveway, which is the driveway that they utilize for their trucks. And also this project was made possible by a Category A grant from MDOT. This particular grant allows companies to apply for money to help support some road improvements. And MDOT issues $4,500 approximately per employee to help cover that cost. The township and the company, as well as the county, help to contribute with matching funds for design. But overall, the MDOT Category A grant is paid for 100% of the construction that takes place. So the good news is too, is initially they were not planning to have a signal at that intersection, but that has been added to the project. So in addition to the intersection improvements and a signal and the paving of South Hill, that should make a nice improvement project there in that area. Also, Category A funding was used to pave the north end of South Hill as well. So it's a very important program. Unfortunately, in 2017, the funding was taken by an appropriations committee, so we lost a cycle there. So I would encourage anyone who lives in the township and has issues with roads in particular, please contact your elected officials and let them know how important that grant is through MDOT. Also, I wanted to announce that we have a grand opening celebration taking place at the Cottage Inn. This will take place on Saturday, May 19th from noon to 5 p.m. Also, I wanted to provide an update on our website. As you know, we're upgrading the website. The layout and design has been completed, and we just received the navigation mock-up and are evaluating those links to make sure that it's navigating effectively and efficiently. Revise will be continuing to migrate all of our content and documents onto the new pages of the website. And in the next 2 weeks, we're expecting to see a full site ready for the first round of review. So we'll be asking for input and feedback from staff and officials on that. Also, I just wanted to make a brief announcement that the library has taken over the programming of the community garden. The community garden is located on Milford Road in front of Abbey Park. 44 plots were tilled this year, and all 44 have been taken. And that happened like in a 2-week period. So it's a very popular, the programming that'll be offered through the library will help the gardeners with any type of assistance they might need in that area. And also just a reminder that the library offers a seed program for residents. So if you want to learn more, you can visit their website. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Tina. Moving on to the chief. Chief, anything on fire?
Good evening, everyone.
Hey,
First, I'd like to mention that this Saturday is our fire prevention open house, open to the public. It's a free event. It's from noon to 3, and lots of activities and educational opportunities at the fire station down the road on 58-800 Grand River. So come on out. We had our first one last year, and it turned out to be quite a great success. So looking forward to it even bigger this year. Tonight I wanted to introduce a few new people and a couple new positions, actually. One is that we just hired a firefighter. Emma Corticus, could you stand up? She's way back there. Anyway, we hired her a couple weeks ago, and she comes to us fully trained as a firefighter 1 and 2, and she's an EMT and a student at OCC, and so she's started last week and is doing a great job, so I just wanted to welcome Emma to the department. Also tonight, I wanted to announce the promotion of 2 of our sergeants, actually have them, their badges presented. You guys approved their promotion 2 months ago, and they are here tonight. So I'd like to first bring up James Tiernan. He has numerous years of experience. He's also bringing up his son, James Jr., who is going to pin the badge, and he was actually taken from a baseball game, as you can tell, to take advantage of this opportunity. So, James, they've been practicing, I think. Next, I'd like to call up John Sauvé. Both of these gentlemen have brought so many years of experience, and the level that they have brought our training up to now is just something like I haven't seen before. The new burn building that we have out back, this is a quick speech, sorry. The new burn building, they've been taking new firefighters out there and you know, just really showing them the ropes from their years of experience. So this is just a great opportunity to have both of these gentlemen promoted. And Lou is John's son, and he is going to pin his badge. I should mention that Sergeant Tiernan is modeling our new officer fashion line. We'll be going to that color shirt, so we're just getting that started. And that
That's
concludes
great.
my report.
Thank you, Ken. Congratulations, man. I'm pretty proud of you. Thank you very much.
I don't know if the rest of the board is aware of your cooperation and the fire department's cooperation in the South Lyon High School Band Road Rally. And they wanted me to say thank you for your cooperation, and they had to visit the fire station and thank a firefighter, and for extra points, get to use the hose, and they definitely enjoyed that, so thank you very much for that.
Good to hear.
So did you get hosed? Thank you, Chief. Senator Venus, anything? Sheriff's Department?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Last week, we finally were able to get the gator out on the trails a little bit.
Oh.
And that'll be increasing a little bit more during the day shift and on the afternoon shift here the next week. So we started getting that running after the late spring. What else was I gonna tell you? It hasn't been too busy. I sent you this morning the breaking and entering we had over the weekend, and nothing really to go off of yet, but we're still working on it. It's still new, but that's common. A lot of those places have been getting broken into over the last couple of months, so there's obviously an up and running crew doing this. And that's about it. I had nothing else to report on.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, Treasurer Carconi is out. Patrick, you have anything for the Planning Commission? Anything to?
Nothing beyond our, it's an old report, March 2018. I can verbally update you on anything else if questions come up.
Anybody have any questions? Okay. Let's move on to ZBA. Any meetings?
There was no meeting.
meetings. Okay. On to the Park Advisory Board. Patrick, anything from that one?
Only what's on later on the agenda for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
Okay. Go ahead.
Real quick. One other thing that we're looking at, we have two things actually. We have a pending discussion with the Junior League about refurbishing some of the old fields
Oh,
in the
yes.
park here. And we're undergoing the process of reviewing the bylaws and structure of our board. So if anyone has any input on that, please let me know. We're looking at shrinking down to a smaller, more manageable group and removing the requirements for some of the board liaisons to always be in attendance.
Are you guys doing that, I mean, where you can give it out for what you plan on changing? Is that a work session or something?
We'll prepare an amendment to our bylaws, and then that would be sent to this board for approval or modification before it would become effective.
Perfect. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate that. Okay, DPW. Bob, you got anything for us?
I do.
You're all tanned. What happened?
Yeah. We're working very hard on the wastewater side. Ed's going to speak shortly about our water, but just so you know, our generator is now in place at the 11 Mile Spalding location. Later this week, a new one will be at the Milford Road location, and probably in about 3 to 4 weeks, the Woodwind. So this is 3 big jobs that have been done and completed. Tomorrow we have work being performed at both Riverwood and the Saddle Creek lift stations, updating those panels. 3 new lights are going to be going in on the Ring Road in about 3 to 4 weeks. They've been ordered. And I'd just like to jump ahead just say we've been going through a transition with many meetings on the taking over of the water system. And I just can't tell you how professional this has been. Oakland County's worked very closely with this, but with the leadership of John and Leslie, Anthony from Highland Treatment, and Melanie in the office working very hard that we're rewriting certain regs that have to be put in the township's name rather than the county's name. All this is coming together, and I'm really proud of the job everyone's doing, and it's going to be awesome. So thank you.
Thanks, Bob. And these generators are really a plus for the residents. They're really a plus. Okay, moving on. Planning, I'm back to Patrick. Do you have anything on the planning, or your letter good?
Nope, nothing else to add.
Okay. All right. That takes care of all the reports, so we're moving on to the approval of the agenda. Anybody have any deletions, additions? If not, we can go ahead and get a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
With the additions of,
Yes, with the additions.
11A and B.
I'll support that.
All right, we have a motion and a support. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, moving on. Unfinished business, Artesian of Pioneer Water discussion. Got some good news, don't we?
We have some real good news. Good evening.
Evening.
I don't know if any of you have been out on 9 Mile and Griswold, but the tower construction for the first tower is, of course, it was permitted and approved a month or so ago, and we have the base poured for the tower. 75 truckloads of concrete goes in the base and a whole bunch of steel. So it took a lot of base to hold up 1 million gallons of water, but it's there now. And
8 million pounds.
yeah,
Think about that.
yeah. And so that work will continue. You won't notice a lot the next couple weeks. We have to let the base cure out, and we have to do some underground piping and site work and that type of thing. About Memorial Day, you'll see the tower start to go in the air, okay? And after it starts, it will just continue on up, and we won't be tall enough to interfere with your kites on June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, but we'll get there eventually. But so the tower one is going well. Woodwind water treatment plant is permitted now through DEQ. I met with the subcontractors out there this morning, and by the way, we're permitted with the recycle of the backwash water. That was a challenge in the state of Michigan, even though we've been doing that in other states, and other folks have been doing that in other states for at least 10 years now. You will be the first entity in the state of Michigan that can recycle your backwash water. That does two things. One, it's good on the environment because we're not dumping it into the sanitary, and it's good on the pocketbook because you don't have to pay to get rid of that water. So it's two pluses, and you guys will be the first entity to do that, and that was quite a challenge, to be honest with you, to get that through Michigan, but they did approve it. It is approved, and we are permitted to recycle the backwash water. So that, like I said, I met with the contractors out there earlier today. That's the other thing I'd like to say. We're in a very specialty business, and all of the specialty type things we do in-house. But along with the specialty type things of a water treatment plant, you have building and site work and that type of thing. And we've subbed all that work out to your local contractors. They're all within 30 miles of Lyon Township or in Lyon Township. So that'll be good for your economy. There's a few more jobs, by the way. And but they're all local folks that'll be doing site work, masonry, that type of thing. So that's a good thing. Most of the equipment is already fabricated for Woodwind. We're just waiting for a place to put it. The filters are completely built. The aerators are completely built. The pumps are about half built. So once we can get going on this, and woodwind should start, the site work should start here within a week. I think you'll see the project move along fairly quickly. And I'm sorry to say that the DEQ process took so long that we won't meet your summer demand and have filtered water for summer. But if the public can be patient just one more summer, I'm confident that by Christmas time they're going to have very high quality water. And so we'll keep pushing as hard as we can, and at least get that first woodwind on as part of the system. The South Hill well is still not approved. Murphy's Law keeps sneaking in on this project for some reason, but it's a one-man department in Lansing that approves wells for the state of Michigan municipalities. He's had that job for 35 years, and he is now retired. Okay, and so that's slowed the process a little bit. He has been replaced, and we are discussing your well with the new director, but it was just kind of a hiccup there, and it slowed the process down a little bit. But soon as that third well at South Hill's approved, all the drawings and specs are already for South Hill ready to be submitted, and we will submit them the day that we get the well approved. We can't submit it prior to, but as soon as we get that third well permitted, we'll send in the plans and specs for South Hill. The second water tower, we have not done much design work on yet. We're still playing with the idea of where to locate it to best fit the needs of the township. And it's not an emergency type. Once we get the first 1 million gallon tank up and running, we'll have a little bit of time to consider where we want to put that second one. So it's been kind of put, not, I want to say on the back burner, but it's the least thing that we've concentrated on thus far. Leslie and I are going to get together here shortly and do some modeling and try to figure out where the best location for that second tower is. The softening issue is being submitted, and we're still struggling with the discharge off of the nano filters for the softening component. We believe we'll get there. We believe we have a good plan in place. It's just going to take time to work through, just like it did with the backwash recycling. It just takes time to work through that DEQ process, but we believe we'll get there, and we'll have softening approved as well. I'm hoping that this month we'll have the third well approved at South Hill. We'll have the plan submitted for South Hill this month yet, and then we'll put a full court press on the softening issue sometime in June is what I'm thinking right now. Any questions?
Anybody have anything for it?
Just want to, I guess, speak to the softening a bit. When we were looking at the different water systems and we reviewed, the 3 different ideas and to go forward, and we ended up choosing you. I think the softening was my the biggest pull for me. So keep the press on the softening on the water system.
I understand. And softening is an important part of the deal here, and we're working hard. We'll get there. It's just we got a few hoops to jump through, and it has nothing to do with the softening. It has to do with the discharge.
Discharge, yes.
You have a very unique situation here as far as the discharge, and that's what we're struggling with. But we'll get there. Okay. Any other questions?
Just glad you're wearing jeans today. Means you're out on the site. We always see you in khakis or dress pants, so the fact that you're wearing jeans is a good sign, so keep wearing jeans.
Okay, I was on the site, you're right. Yep, I was in the mud.
Hey, Ed, will you let the public know how many yards of concrete went into that base of that water tower?
It's like 575 yards of concrete.
The trucks are
And-
lined up. It was
And
crazy.
rebar as big as my arm. I mean, Bob saw it, and Dave, your building inspector said, I've never seen rebar that big. But as Bob said, at 8.34 pounds per gallon, it's a lot of weight when you put 1 million gallons in the air.
Yeah.
You don't want it to go anywhere once you get it up there, except for down the pipe. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Ed.
Thanks so much, Ed. Okay, we're moving on to, we have a number of second readings for housekeeping text amendments and some different things like that. So I'd like to, does everyone understand the majority of these that we've already put? If you don't, I'll go ahead and we'll go one by one, but we can ask Patrick for the explanation if you have any questions. Is that fair? Okay, well, let's start in the first one here, and that's a consideration, the adoption of ordinance to amend the campground zoning ordinance 193-18. Does everyone understand that one?
Mm-hmm.
Want to make a motion, or we'll just move these things forward?
Sure. I'll move the adoption of the ordinance for the Township of Lyon to amend campground zoning ordinance number 193-18.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to C, consideration the adoption of ordinance for Lyon Township to amend the zoning ordinance 190-18, revision text amendments.
Make a motion to approve, motion to adopt ordinance 190-18.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move on to D, consideration to adopt, to remove the reference town center overlay district. That is ordinance 0318.
I'll move the adoption of amendment to ordinance 03-18.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to E, consideration of adoption ordinance Charter Township to amend the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Penalty, Continuing Violations, Ordinance 04-18.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 04-18.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to F, consideration the adoption of ordinance for the Township of Lyon to amend the child care centers and group daycare homes, text amendment 191-18.
I'll move to amend adopt ordinance AP 1807, ordinance number 191-18.
I'll second. Oh, sorry, was that Chris?
Sure, whatever.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, and our last one, G, consideration adoption of ordinance Lyon Township to amend mini warehouse text amendment AP 1808.
I'll move the adoption of the ordinance for the Charter Township of Lyon to amend mini warehouses, zoning ordinance number 192-18.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Get through that fast. All right, moving on to new business. First, we have the Solara and Matt Cat special land use. Patrick?
Thank you. The proposed application is for the old Duncan Disposal Building at 23333 Griswold Road on the west side of Griswold between 9 and 10 Mile Road. And this is a joint application between the South Lyon Area Recreation Authority and South Lyon Matt Cats. The property is zoned I-2 industrial, and it's approximately 9.93 acres. The previous use was industrial, and it has some landscaping, detention, and parking. Currently, the site is mostly vacant. In supporting the idea of adaptive reuse of unoccupied facilities, Solara and Matt Cats are proposing to make use of portions of the existing building as the home of their operations. They propose to use the east side of the building, which is the office area, And also, there are some open areas as well that, on the rear side, that Matt Katz will be using for the wrestling. The primary use for the wrestling practice is 20 to 40 kids with regular hours, Tuesday through Thursday, 6 to 9 p.m. Slera will have their hours between 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, with some additional programming outside of those hours. Recreation uses, indoor recreation is a special land use in the I-2 district, so it's subject to a public hearing, planning commission recommendation, and ultimately a decision by the Township Board of Trustees. One of the reasons generally with a lot of communities that have indoor recreation as a special land use is that industrial buildings make great indoor recreation uses for rock climbing, wrestling studios, anything where the high ceilings and the open floor plans can benefit the use. At the April 9th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission approved the site plan application and recommended approval of the indoor recreation special land use subject to the following 5 conditions. First, the special land use approval must be granted for the recreation uses in the I-2 district. And that's by the Township Board. Second, all signage must comply with the zoning ordinance. Third, future additional occupants of the structure will be limited by the availability of parking and may require reconfiguration of the parking loading area to add spaces. Fourth, to comply with the landscaping requirements, 5 deciduous trees, 2 ornamental trees, and 40 shrubs must be added to address the additional landscaping. And fifth, the approval by the township engineer. Again, the review procedures are a recommendation by the Planning Commission and then final action by the Board of Trustees. Section 6.03 of the zoning ordinance has 9 standards that must be met in determining whether to grant a special land use to a piece of property. In review of these 9 standards, we find that Slera and Matt Katz meet all 9 of the standards, and therefore we recommend approval. Our findings on all 9 of the standards are in our letter of May 1st of 2018. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions about that or anything else in our letter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. I think this is a great thing, and that's just my opinion, and I would love to see the Matt Katz and Solara go into this building and you can go ahead and ask any questions if you like, but I think it's a great thing.
I agree. I appreciate the thorough review that Patrick did and the consideration of the Planning Commission. I don't think the building should sit empty. This is a perfect use there, and it won't bother anyone.
Anyone else?
My son was part of Matt Katz for a number of years, and it's a fantastic organization, and I think they'll be good stewards for our township, and I think it's a great location.
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion to approve special land use AP 18-14B for Slera and Matt Katz. Let's see, subject to the conditions that the Planning Commission, 5 conditions the Planning Commission laid out at their April 9th Planning Commission meeting, and in reference to the May 1st, 2018 letter from McKenna.
I'll support.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Get the Matt Katz in there. All right, moving on to B, consideration of the introduction of ordinance Charter Township of Lyon to amend winemaking and distillery regulations, text amendment. This is first reading. Patrick, do you want to start that one out? Or?
Yes, thank you. I'll read briefly from our letter of May 1st regarding this proposed amendment. It has been recommended for approval by the Planning Commission after original review and then a couple of revisions since then. The township has expressed an interest in adopting regulations that would allow for small winemakers and small distillers in appropriate locations of the township. The purposes of licensing by the state of Michigan, hard cider producers would also be covered under a winemaker's license. The state has statewide licensing for these types of uses for small winemakers and small distillers. So this is in a sense following the suit of the state to allow for some of these uses in certain areas of the township. The proposed amendments include small winemakers and small distillers as principal permitted uses in the core and edge subareas of the new Hudson zoning district, and also a permitted use in the B3 general business district. These uses are proposed to be special land uses in the R1 district and the B2 community business district. The reason for the special land use in the R1 district, there may be some rural agricultural or estate-sized lot parcels where they may do it in a barn or perhaps even in the home, but if they're large enough to have the capacity for parking and things like that, it may fit. It wouldn't fit everywhere, which is why we would recommend making it a special land use. But there are some areas of the township where uses like that would fit if they can meet the standards. The state of Michigan defines what a small winemaker and what a small distiller is, so there's really nothing new in the regulations that's outside of how the state defines it. The Planning Commission held the public hearing at its meeting on February 26th, and there were no comments from the public. During the deliberations, there were some concerns raised about wastewater disposal, parking requirements, hours of operation, and some specifics on accessory commercial uses. So as a result, the amendments were revised to address some of those concerns, and it came back at the March 26th meeting, at which time it was recommended for approval to the Township Board. In general, what the regulations consist of are requiring the minimum setbacks of the district, having some discretionary standards on the impact on surrounding properties, especially when it comes to deciding whether or not to grant a special land use. The regulations also include parking provisions. For the new Hudson zoning district, it defers to the district because there are opportunities for on-street parking and flexibility in parking there. For the other districts, the regular parking standards of the ordinance do apply, although there are some setback standards there. There are some limited uses of accessory commercial facilities, especially in the R1 district where it's typically residential and agriculture, where there are those proposed restrictions on the commercial activity, which is 25% of the gross floor space or 1,000 square feet. And again, that's just in the R1 district because all the other districts where these would be permitted are commercial in nature. And there are some restrictions on the accessory commercial, such as they have to be contained in the building, they have to be delineated clearly on the plan. Permanent restroom facilities are required, no portable facilities, and they have to comply with the dimensional requirements of the district. The permits and licenses from the state and, if applicable, federal government would be required prior to operation. If there is one established in the R1 district, one single-family dwelling is permitted only, and it must serve as the principal residence of the owner or operator of the facility. So there has to be a link between the person living there, owning it, and the operation itself. Any special events would be subject to the special event permit standards of the zoning ordinance that are in existence. There are production limits which are set based on the state, so we adopt those limits by reference, but we do put in there the number of gallons. The same performance standards of Article 20 of the zoning ordinance would also apply to these uses. The last two items are items that we spent a lot of time discussing at the Planning Commission level. First, the sanitary and septic disposal. And we worked with the Oakland County Sanitation Department and looking for some standards. And really, it's hard to find a single set of standards to apply for something that's on septic. So what we recommend having it read as is that the small winemakers and the hard cider producers and small distillers, if they're connected to the sanitary system, they're subject to the township's industrial pretreatment requirements. If they're on septic, they must obtain approval from the Oakland County Health Division prior to establishment of the use. And in working with Oakland County, they were in agreement with having them review it on a case-by-case basis to decide if it's going to work there or not. And then finally, the hours of operation. We recommended placing them on the properties in the R1 district where any events are limited to 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. However, In some cases, the planning commission would be allowed to have less restrictive hours or more restrictive hours based on the zoning, the impact on the neighbors and nearby properties, including any future development of adjacent or nearby properties. So that concludes our summary of those uses, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. I have one question. That industrial pretreatment requirement, that's a pretty tough thing to get, isn't it?
Well, it depends on how much they're producing, and it's just that alcohol contains so many sugars that they could actually seriously upset the wastewater treatment plant if it was a large producer. So if it's a small user, the amount of pretreatment they could probably do something really simple, that they dispose of it in a different way, but what we want to prohibit is just dumping of bad batches down the sanitary sewer. And so it would make them subject to those requirements, and they would have to get a separate permit for that to make sure that they comply.
No bad batches of
So
wine.
the answer is yes. It can be significant, but I think it's a direct relation to how much they're producing too.
The same goes for microbreweries.
Right.
And we
Any
address
type of
that.
alcohol.
Right.
And 60,000 gallons, that's a lot. It seems like a lot for a small winemaker.
It is, and that's a state definition of a small winemaker. So if somebody gets a small winemaker license from the state, that's what they have the permit to do. I think anecdotally, most don't even come close to that. They just want to have, certain batches. But it is a pretty big jump from, just a few hundred gallons up to that 60 or 50,000.
Well, I mean, we have the draft horse there. Do they have a pretreatment? They do.
They do.
Okay.
And they
They
have a
do.
permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's probably the right thing to do, and that's kind of the wave coming in, winemakers and things like that.
What it allows you, for them to comply with the industrial pretreatment program, should you have a user who's blatantly abusing it, it allows you to shut them down in a very quick manner so that it doesn't upset your whole system.
Okay. Any
And it
questions?
almost gives you support because the DQ stands behind you on it.
Got it.
So,
Anybody have any questions for Patrick on this here?
Patrick, the hours of operation were for residential, but if it's in the DDA or downtown where there's businesses and bars already, are they allowed to stay open a little later than that if they need to, if there are private parties or something?
Yes, that's correct. Those hours of operation for the 8 to
Strictly
9,
for
just the R1 district.
R1, okay,
And then the
perfect.
flexibility in it is only applied to the R1. So if
Okay.
it's permitted by right, they can be open whenever.
Okay.
Well, I think this is a good thing for the downtown, but, all right, any other questions? Somebody want to make a motion?
Let's see. I'll move to amend the winemaking and distillery regulations to second reading.
I support that.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. All right, moving on, Cambridge of Lyon rezoning, AP 1804. Patrick, you want to start that one out?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to read from our letter of May 1st of 2018. And it's similar to the letter that was written to the Planning Commission with a few additional items to summarize the Planning Commission's actions and the discussion at that meeting. The proposed rezoning for this application is for the east side of Kent Lake Road between Silver Lake Road and Grand River Avenue. And it's a site that's 58.64 acres that is zoned R1.0 Residential Agriculture District. The proposal is to rezone the property to RM2 Multiple Family Residential District. This site was recently the subject of a plan development application for the Cottages of Turtle Creek, which had proposed 54 single-family homes on 24.84 net acres of land. The Cottages of Turtle Creek proposed 50 of those homes to be targeted to empty nesters, with 4 additional single-family homes at the end of Town Square Street on the east side of the site. That application was denied for a number of reasons, and in our letter, we had noted 8 different reasons why that plan development application was denied. Unlike generic rezonings, which this application is, all plan development applications are different, and no 2 plan developments are the same. In this case, this is a rezoning to an RM2 district without conditions, so it's fairly straightforward in terms of the request. The procedures and criteria for rezoning are set forth in Article 9 of the zoning ordinance, which requires the Planning Commission to hold a public hearing, make a recommendation to the Township Board, at which time the Township Board has the authority to take final action on the rezoning. The Planning Commission held the public hearing on the rezoning application on March 12th of 2018, and there were comments from 3 neighbors. After closing the public hearing and holding deliberations, the Planning Commission unanimously supported a motion to recommend denial of the rezoning to the Township Board based on the grounds that it does not meet the review standards of Section 9.03E of the zoning ordinance, and based on the March 9th, 2018 letter from McKenna and the March 9th, 2018 letter from CES. The existing land use of the site is vacant, with portions occupied by wetlands. Land to the south is owned by Irwin's Orchards, and a portion is occupied by the Apple Orchard. Kensington Mobile Home Park and Cobblestone Village single-family subdivision are located to the east. Land to the west across Kent Lake Road is occupied by Kent Lake Elementary School. The subject property and the land to the south is designated as single-family residential A on the future land use map. The single-family residential A future land use classification allows for development at a density of 1.25 units per acre, which is appropriate for land that's zoned R1.0. R1.0, if it has sewer access, that density does come out to 1.25 units per acre. So the future land use and the current zoning are fairly consistent, especially if there's sewer there, then it matches exactly. Section 9.03E of the zoning ordinance sets forth 9 criteria to evaluate rezoning proposals. And I'll go through those 9 criteria and findings from our May 1st letter. The first criteria is, will the proposed amendment be in accordance with the basic intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance? And in looking at that, we break that down into 5 different parts. The first part is to further the implementation of the master plan. The future land use map of the master plan was most recently amended in 2015 in December, and it classifies the future land use on the site as single-family residential A, which is up to 1.25 units an acre, which corresponds to the R1 zoning district. So the rezoning to an RM2 would be inconsistent with the master plan. The second item in looking at the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance is to protect all areas from encroachment by incompatible uses. The rezoning of the parcel to RM-2 would significantly increase the likelihood that a permitted use in the RM2 district, for example, apartment buildings, would be incompatible with the adjacent land uses, given that there are vacant lands, agricultural lands, and many single-family residential uses. Another criteria is to prevent the overcrowding of land and concentration of populations, thereby preventing blight and deterioration. As noted later in the letter, rezoning the subject parcel to RM2 would overcrowd the land based on the existing infrastructure. According to the West Grand River Sanitary Special Assessment District, there are only 35 REUs assigned to the subject parcel. However, the proposed RM2 zoning district would allow about 218 residential units if it was developed at its maximum density for apartment buildings. And this is based on taking the net acreage of the site, exclusive of wetlands, and doing the calculations of the RM2 zoning district for apartment buildings. Apartments are permitted, and that's one use that we modeled here just to see what the density would be and how many units. Because this is a generic rezoning, it's not a conditional rezoning, so should the rezoning be granted, the applicant would have the right to apply for any use that's allowed in the RM-2 district. So even if apartments weren't the intent, we can't consider any particular use there, what the intent is or isn't. If we consider the RM2 zoning or any zoning district, we have to consider all the uses in the district, not just some of those uses. Another item is to minimize the congestion on public streets. We don't have a current traffic study with the rezoning application, so it's unknown what impact 218 multifamily units would have on the nearby roads. But according to Trip Generation, which is a book published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, 218 apartments would generate about 1,465 trips on a weekday based on a rate of 6.72 trips per unit. The most recent 24-hour two-way traffic counts for Kent Lake Road between Silver Lake and Grand River was 6,160 back in 2012. So based on those calculations, the RM2 apartment development would increase traffic on Kent Lake Road by about 24%. The second criteria in Article 9 for determining whether to grant a rezoning is the question of will the proposed amendment further the comprehensive planning goals of the township. As we noted previously, the single-family residential A allows development at a density of up to 1.25 units per acre, which is about 31 single-family residences on the 24.84 net acres. In contrast, again, the RM2 district could allow for approximately 218 multifamily residential units. The most recent amendment to the master plan was adopted in December 2015, so it was fairly recent, certainly within the 5-year period that master plans are reviewed in. And the master plan did review this particular area, in this subject parcel, in fact, in what was called Study Area 5. And the master plan, in studying that area, concluded that the future land use classification of this parcel is single-family residential A, which corresponds to the R1 zoning district with or without utilities. So because the master plan amendment is recent and focused on certain study areas, any allegation of a planning mistake would be unfounded. And transportation was a major part of the master plan study back in 2015, but it wasn't the only part. Traffic certainly does play an impact on there, especially given the road network, the proximity to the highway, but there are many other planning considerations for recommending a future land use that go beyond transportation. One thing to note, though, is that the December 2015 amendment to the master plan did address the future planning for additional high-density and multifamily housing in Lyon Township. Study Area 1, which is located along Milford Road south of New Hudson, included an analysis of current land use trends, land use compatibility, traffic and transportation, and land use needs. And that analysis concluded that Study Area 1 in the New Hudson area did need more higher density residential uses and mixed uses. And as a result, the future land use map of the master plan was amended to classify large land areas in Study Area 1 around New Hudson to mixed use and high density residential mixed use product. The third criteria is, have conditions changed since the zoning ordinance was adopted, or was there a mistake in the zoning ordinance that justifies the amendment? Conditions always do change. Whenever plans are adopted, conditions are always changing. For example, with the need for more high-density residential housing, the township recently adopted 2 new zoning districts to the zoning ordinance, the mixed-use district and the New Hudson zoning district. And in addition to those districts, the township rezoned large areas of the township in and around the New Hudson area to these zoning districts. The mixed-use district permits multiple family residential, and all 3 sub-areas of the New Hudson zoning district permit multiple family residential in some form. Concentrating the higher density mixed use and multiple family residential uses in the New Hudson area is a high priority of the master plan and will result in more livable and pedestrian-friendly areas over time. So Lyon Township is committed to meeting the demand for high density and multifamily housing by planning these uses in the proper areas, and has done the proper study in the master plan. The fourth criteria is, will the amendment correct an inequitable situation created by the zoning ordinance rather than merely grant special privileges? We find that the proposed amendment to RM2 would essentially grant special privileges by allowing a higher density than would otherwise be permitted in the master plan single-family residential A future land use classification for the site. At the March 12th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting, the applicant had stated that the subject area was not suitable or not reasonable for single-family residential homes due to the site's proximity to I-96. And we find that that statement is not supported by the developed character in many areas of the township, as there are many single-family homes in Lyon Township that are located closer to I-96 than the subject property and were built after the construction of I-96. The same can also be stated for many other communities along I-96 that have single-family homes located as close to the freeway as the subject site or even closer. Given that the site is located approximately 1,300 feet, which is about a quarter mile south of the traveled lanes of I-96, there's no evidence to suggest that the noise from I-96 will be prohibitive to single-family residential use on the site. The fifth criteria is, will the amendment result in unlawful exclusionary zoning? The rezoning will not result in the exclusion of any uses that the township can reasonably accommodate on other appropriate zoned areas of land. As we previously stated, we have a mixed-use district that has been adopted in the text and also rezoned, the same with the New Hudson zoning district. So the township is planning and zoning and rezoning properties to implement that vision, but doing so along the New Hudson area in accordance with its plan. In the applicant's letter that was submitted with the application that was received on January 30th of 2018, the applicant raises a concern about a perceived lack of multifamily residential zoning in the township. First, the township has the mixed-use district, and the township has the New Hudson zoning district and planned developments. And there are several planned developments that do have attached single-family and have multifamily products. So even though the mixed-use district, the New Hudson zoning district, and the PDs that have those, they're not multifamily zoning districts per se, they do allow for multifamily uses, and there have been a lot of multifamily projects within those zoning districts. So there's nothing exclusionary about the township zoning ordinance when it comes to multifamily housing and different housing options. Those options are there within those zoning districts. It's a matter of location, and the township has gone through the proper procedures and the studies to find those locations and to rezone those properties accordingly. The sixth is, will the amendment set an inappropriate precedent resulting in the need to correct future planning mistakes? The rezoning of the subject parcel to RM2 would establish an inappropriate precedent because the subject parcel is one of many parcels in the area zoned R1 and planned for single-family residential A on the future land use map. So should this property be rezoned to RM2, that would open the door to a number of similar properties, regardless of the proximity to 96, because that's not the only factor here in looking at the rezoning, but it would undermine the master plan and it would set an inappropriate precedent. The seventh criteria is, if the rezoning is requested, is the proposed zoning consistent with the zoning classification of surrounding land? As previously stated, the lots to the north, east, and south of the site are all zoned R1. About 2/3 of the eastern lot line abuts the R0.5 zoning district, which is a single-family residential subdivision. In this case, the inconsistency is greater because of the potential extension of Town Square Street onto the subject property to service future multiple-family residential development under the proposed RM2 zoning. The eighth criteria is, if a rezoning is requested, could all of the requirements of the proposed zoning classification be complied with on the subject parcel? The upland area on the east side of the site would likely not meet the requirements of the RM2 district because the zoning ordinance prohibits multifamily developments from having a street with no outlet greater than 300 feet in length. The Town Square Street stub is already at least 300 feet from the nearest cross street. Therefore, the proposed RM2 zoning would either make the eastern portion of the site unbuildable or would encourage the applicant to seek a variance from this requirement. And finally, the ninth criteria is, if a rezoning is requested, is the proposed zoning consistent with the trends in land development in the general vicinity of the property in question? The proposed RM2 zoning is inconsistent with the trends in land development in the general vicinity. As stated in the letter, the area is predominantly planned, zoned, and developed for single-family residential use. Although there is a manufactured housing park to the east, The distance between the manufactured housing park and the upland area of the subject parcel is over 300 feet due to the large wetland area on the site. Therefore, there's no relationship between the existing manufactured housing park and the upland area of the subject parcel. And finally, as previously stated, the site's proximity to I-96 is not justification for rezoning, as there are many areas in Lyon Township closer to I-96 that have single-family residential development. So based on the following findings in the conclusion of our letter, we recommend that the rezoning to RM2 be denied. And there are 11 findings that I'll read as a summary. First, the proposed rezoning would not further the comprehensive goals of the township because it would permit development at a density far greater than specified on the future land use map. The most recent amendment to the master plan, which was adopted in December 2015, examined the subject parcel in Study Area 5 and concluded that the future land use classification of this parcel is single-family residential A, which corresponds to R1 zoning with and without utilities. 2, the rezoning of the subject parcel to RM2 would significantly increase the likelihood that a permitted use in the RM2 district would be incompatible with the adjacent lots. 3, the approximate density of 218 multiple-family residential units in the proposed RM2 district far exceeds the sewer capacity of 35 REUs assigned to the site per the West Grand River Sanitary Special Assessment District. 4, conditions have not changed that would justify rezoning the subject parcel to RM2. Recent amendments to the future land use map of the master plan and the zoning ordinance recognizes the need for additional high-density residential and mixed-use development and encourages this development in and around New Hudson. 5th, the proposed amendment to RM2 would grant special privileges by allowing a higher density than would otherwise be permitted in the master plan's single-family residential A future land use classification for the site. 6th, given that the site is located approximately 1,300 feet, about a quarter mile south of the traveled lanes of I-96, there's no evidence to suggest that the noise from 96 will be prohibitive to single-family residential use. On the contrary, there are many single-family homes in Lyon Township that are located closer to I-96 than the subject property and were built after the construction of 96. The same can be stated for many other communities along I-96 that have single-family homes located within a quarter mile of the freeway. 7, the existing R1 zoning classification provides for reasonable use of the property for single-family residential purposes. 8, the rezoning will not result in the exclusion of any uses that the township can reasonably accommodate on other appropriately zoned land. 9, the rezoning of the subject parcel to RM2 would establish an inappropriate precedent because the subject parcel is one of many parcels in the area zoned R1 and planned for single-family residential A on the future land use map. 10, the proposed RM2 zoning of the subject parcel is inconsistent with the zoning classification of the surrounding land. And 11, the proposed RM2 rezoning is inconsistent with the trends in land development in the general vicinity. So with that, our recommendation based on those 11 findings and the findings in our letter is to deny the rezoning to RM2 for the subject parcel. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Together pretty well. Any questions for Patrick?
I think he covered it adequately.
No questions? Okay, would you like to come up and?
We're going to bring up the map to help illustrate where we're at. So if you bear with us just for a second.
Do you want to state your name for the record, please?
My name is Robert Carson.
Thank you.
I'm here with Carmen Aventini, a planner. We have the principal of Cambridge Homes, who is here, Mark Ritabono, and my partner, Greg Obloy, is also here. So this will just take us a second, and then we'll move right ahead.
Has a cover. Is the cover on?
There you go. Yep. Nope, it's not. John, it's not.
Okay.
As I said, my name is Robert Carson. I'm here to introduce this proposal to the Township Board, and I'm pleased to be back in Lyon Township before the board. Been here a number of times. We have a number of accomplishments for several of my clients that are both successful and happy to be in the township. This could be such a development. Now, one might wonder how I could possibly say that, having listened to the township's planner report with respect to this site. On the other hand, what is missing from that analysis is a realistic appraisal of both the site and its location. For instance, calling the school site zoned for R1A, residential agriculture, is really a misnomer. It may technically be zoned for that, but it's not used for that and never will be used for that. It is a high-density school site. That's what is across the road from it. Similarly, the downplaying of the manufactured home community with respect to this site, which abuts the site and has its own peculiarities, which I am sure everybody is aware of, is not fair to the site. Third, the site is heavily impacted by wetlands and is a very, very difficult site to develop. In fact, it cannot be developed in a financially responsible way, even if you attribute 0 to the land cost, and that's been submitted to the township. So if you were to try to develop it as zoned with 1 1/4 acre lots, it cannot be developed in an economically feasible way. And I think that must be taken into consideration. Finally, there's been a misconception with respect to the freeway. It is not simply that it is 1,300 feet below the freeway on this map. It is essentially adjacent to an intersection, which makes it peculiar to this site and the other sites that may have been developed along the freeway where there is no intersection, inapplicable to this analysis. Now, this site, I believe, was zoned in 1991. To think that there have not been changes with respect to this site, no school existed at that point in time, and the other high-density developments around it did not exist at that point in time, would be to deny the reality of the situation. Now, I wasn't here for the master plan, but the master plan as a goal is not something that determines the use of the site. Obviously, it is zoning. And in rezoning, you do take into consideration what it is master planned for. But what you take into consideration is the realities of the site. And to the extent the realities have not been taken into adequate consideration, if you deny the circumstances within the site, that is the wetland difficulty within the site, and those uses that surround the site, and simply recite that the uses that are not in existence, for instance, the school site as an example, as an R1 residential site. There's not going to ever be R1 residential on that site. And the trip generation with respect to the highest potential use, as opposed to the trip generation with respect to the other high-density uses around it and even the school. And the community facility site across, which will never be developed, is R1A. Then you deny the reality of the consideration that should be put to here. So what you have is a situation where the township had the opportunity in the past to accept a 54-unit development, and it turned it down. I'm not here to put that circumstance in front of you, but that's what it would have been, a restricted, essentially senior 55-unit development. Finally, before I introduce Carmine Aventini to go through each of the planning criteria, I want to talk a little bit about the REUs that have been allocated in theory to the site. It's not capacity that's been allocated to this site. There is capacity. What was allocated is the number of REUs in the SAD. What does that mean? It means that to the extent that more than 35 REUs are going to be used on the site, that additional tap fees and monies would have to be paid, that they would not be covered by the SAD, not that they could not be allocated. In fact, the only issue that might come up, which I'm not sure would come up, and it would be an engineering issue, is whether there would have to be an additional augmentation to a pump station in that circumstance, which, if it did arise, would be our responsibility. Lastly, before I go through the various criteria, we have in our submission gone through each of the criteria and the 11 findings. I'm sure you'll not be surprised, having looked upon it, that we come to different conclusions. The purpose of zoning is to maintain the health, safety, and welfare in a realistic circumstance with respect to a particular site. It is not to prevent the adequate development in the site, and it is not to be delusional with respect to the uses around the site. That does not maintain the health, safety, and welfare of the community, or properly discharge what I believe to be the responsibilities of both the developer and the municipality. The particular uses and conclusions, I think, of the planner will be dealt with by Mr. Aventini, if you will be kind enough to allow him to come up, who is a recognized planner. Finally, I think, I believe each of you may know, but Cambridge Homes has just a spectacular reputation for high-quality developments. They are sought after in other communities. They always build quality. They've been recognized as award-winning quality developers. That's what you would get here, is a high-quality development by a renowned developer. This is Carmine Aventini.
Good evening. I am Carmen Aventini. I'm the president of CIB Planning. We're a planning consulting firm. We work primarily for communities. We're also the lead firm for the MEDC Redevelopment Ready Communities Program. And I just happen to be the lead trainer for their zoning and development review process program. I've been asked by Mark Guidabono of Cambridge Homes.
Excuse me really quick. Carmine,
Sure.
is it true that you're still the planning consultant for the city of South Lyon?
Yes, that is true. Yes.
I think that would have been important to disclose. Are you the person who then passes judgment or recommendations to the county when there are border rezonings or rewrites of the master plan?
There would be other people on my staff that look at that.
I guess
yes.
If you see where I'm going,
Yes,
you're
I am,
representing
and-
a private consultant, and you also represent our board
Yes.
and community, and
Right.
you didn't disclose that, and I am thinking it's important for the record to reflect that while you're representing the city of South Lyon, you're advocating for a development in a border community which has possibly crossover zoning issues.
Right, and actually, I did talk to the city manager before agreeing to take this on.
Sure.
And,
I just wanted
and looked at the
everybody else-
location and felt that it was far enough away from the city that there wouldn't be a conflict.
I just wanted for the record
Fair enough.
that to be reflected is all.
Fair enough.
Thanks.
Okay. So, and basically, I have been asked by Mark to help figure out how to develop this property. He previously requested, as Mr. Carson indicated, he requested a single-family empty nester neighborhood, was called Turtle Creek, and was denied, even though it was consistent with the master plan. If you look at page 9 of the 2015 update, it states, and I'll quote, "Single-family residential B development could be considered for housing designed for empty nesters, recognizing the lower traffic volumes generated by such housing," end of quote. The Turtle Creek PUD project was proposed at that density and was denied by the township and claimed to be inconsistent with the master plan. So here we are, looking for other uses for the site. We have submitted a pretty detailed narrative regarding this rezoning request as we look for alternate uses, and we will support and have supported that this is a very unique site in terms of its location, its surrounding land uses, the natural features, and the development feasibility. All communities are obligated to provide a reasonable use of a property, regardless of what the current zoning designation may be. The rezoning application includes detailed financial information and a conceptual layout showing that large lot, single-family residential development meeting the current zoning designation is not feasible. And as Mr. Carson indicated, even if the land were given zero value, it still wouldn't be feasible. So the Planning Commission and the consultants failed to directly evaluate this information. Instead, they stated as a response that, quote, other similar R1 zone sites in Lyon Township have been developed along major corridors. Therefore, the R1 zoning classification provides for reasonable use of the property, and there is no inequitable situation created by the zoning ordinance, end of quotes. We've asserted and provided detailed supporting information that the current zoning does not allow reasonable use of the property. The Planning Commission and the consultants failed to address this key item in the application. I obviously don't want to go through all of the same points that Mr. Carson did regarding the property. I think it should be noted that, once again, listening to the planner's letter, you'd think that because there's all this R1 zoning around the site, that you'd see all these R10 developments surrounding it, when in fact, if you look at the map, that's really not the case. This is a pretty isolated site. The wetlands provide a natural buffer, not just from the manufactured housing community, but basically from all of the development to the south. And the only real piece of property that could be developed north of this is the small sliver that's immediately abutting the north end of the site. And we figured you could probably put like 3 houses on there, potentially. Maybe a little bit more, but not much, primarily because of the wetlands, once again. The rest of the property is not going to be developed for single-family housing. So this really is an island unto itself. I'd also like to clarify one other point. In our presentation to the Planning Commission, we indicated that no other sites in the township are located in close proximity to a highway interchange, not just the highway itself. You've got vehicles accelerating and braking, which creates additional noise, and those ramps are definitely closer than the highway itself. So you will get added noise, sound levels out of that interchange than you would just being located near a highway where vehicles are passing by. And then last but not least, the sewer, without repeating Mr. Carson's comments, the sewer capacity there is not really an issue for denying. It's possible to provide sewer to the site. It's just a matter of cost. And Mr. Guidabono's already indicated he'd be willing to do that. So in conclusion, we provided supporting information proving that the subject site cannot reasonably be used under the current zoning designation. The future land use and zoning designations do not reflect current development trends and existing land uses in the area. The subject site is buffered from surrounding land uses with extensive wetland and floodplain areas, presenting virtually no negative impacts under the requested RM2 zoning to future and existing residential uses to the west and to the south. Nor can the site and area be considered in line with the intent of the R1 district, which supports exurban estate living where public utilities and services are not available, and also encourages agricultural uses. Thank you.
Unless you have any questions, I think that will conclude our presentation.
Okay,
We
thank
hope that you give due consideration to the points that we've raised. We can, if you wish, go through each of the 11 findings, or proposed findings, I should say, that were raised, and rebut each one in detail, should you wish it. But in the interest of time, we won't do that. I think that since all of those findings were based upon not the current existing situation with respect to this property, but the hypothetical R1 that surrounds it, when in fact it does not, for practical reasons, surround it. And unless you have any questions, we'll move on.
Does anyone have any questions? Well, I guess
Thank
not.
you for your time.
All right, so then, if somebody wants to try to carve out a motion for this, This would be to rezone from R10 to RM2.
John, for clarification, after a motion, is there an opportunity for discussion, or is the discussion before the motion?
No, we can make the motion and we can discuss it.
Well, then I would like to make a motion to deny rezoning.
I will support and add that it's AP 18-04, and I would ask that the McKenna letter of May 1st be referenced in the motion, as well as the Planning Commission's unanimous recommendation to also deny this request for the same reasons.
All right, we have a motion to deny and a second. Open it up for discussion. Any further discussion?
I've got quite a few items, unless somebody else wants to start. But just in looking at the March 12th, 2018 Planning Commission minutes, specifically line 115, there was a quote that says, they believe they are, in reference to the applicant, they believe they are entitled to reasonable use of their land. And I would refer back to the McKenna letters and state that I think that the current zoning is a reasonable use of their land. Also, there's an item on page 2 of the applicant's narrative referring to the abutting land, and it has been stated several times in reference to Kent Lake Elementary, and that the abutting land is not rural in nature, and I would beg to differ. My kids went to that elementary school. It is probably the most rural in nature out of Southline School District, and if you take a look at the fact that Island Lake State Recreation Area surrounds the campus of that elementary school, I do believe that the school itself, as well as its use, is still rural in nature. Also, given the fact that once the buses have left in the afternoon, that's a pretty vacant area. There's no sidewalk that leads to that elementary school. This is not something that residents can easily get to. So the parking lot is relatively empty, as is the playground, after school is let out each day. So it's not this high intense use that you seem to paint a picture for. I do also very much enjoy the comment that is on page 5 of the May 1st McKenna letter, item 4, which states a purchaser's due diligence would conclude that the site is zoned R10, is classified as single-family residential A on the master plan, up to 1.25 units per acre, which corresponds to R10 zoning, with and without utilities, and that 35 REUs are assigned to the subject parcel. And I key in on the word due diligence. This is all information that was available before the purchase of this property. A couple of comments that were made tonight that, quote, the property cannot be developed in a financially responsible way, then I don't know why you purchased it. The reference to the intersection, then why did you buy it? And it appears that the realities of the site were not taken into consideration. You said that about our planning. I would say that about your purchase. And that concludes my comments for tonight.
I just want to add about the REUs. 35 assigned to that, and you say it's only a matter of money to increase it. That's not so. We have a capacity that we can't exceed without major modifications in our sewage treatment plant. Just so you know that.
Any other comments?
I don't have a whole lot to add. I think it's been covered.
Yeah, I think Patrick did a good job summing it up, and hard to say. I will, I know the Lyon Township Master Plan Amendment was cited a number of times by both parties, and I was part of that amendment processing when I was on Planning Commission. But we did look at the northwest corner of the township, and I'll even read from that amendment. It says it faces the constraints of high traffic volumes on an inadequate two-lane road system. The transportation difficulties are compounded by the offset of Kent Lake Road and Pontiac Trail, so a continuous route to I-96 is lacking. Based on these considerations, the Planning Commission concluded it would be prudent to designate the undeveloped lands as single-family residential A, recognizing that reevaluation of this designation may be in order if solutions to the road system were implemented. So we have looked at this area in the past and have came to the same conclusion to keep it as is.
Okay. Well, we have a motion and we have a support. I'd like to call this one by roll, please.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
John Dolan,
Yes.
John Hicks,
Yes.
Michelle Cash,
Yes.
Lisa Blaine,
Yes.
Christopher Enlow.
Yes.
Motion denied. All right, moving on. Request to grant permit for fireworks display to Walnut Creek Country Club. This basically, these permits are, they do these every year, and this is much of a formality. So basically, that's where we're at. These are, the permits are in front of you. They do all their due diligence. They get the insurance they require and the staff they need to take care of it. So these are another one they're on for approval. Does anybody want to make the motion to approve the?
Make a motion to grant a permit for fireworks display for Walnut Creek Country Club.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move on to the second permit application. Same kind of thing. They do these annual.
I'll make a motion to grant the permit for fireworks display to Michigan Fireworks Company at Cattails Golf Course.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I have a question.
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
Did we always do this, or the fire department grant permits?
They look at them.
They do.
They look
review
at them and they approve them
Vote
on
is
the
done.
permits. Okay, moving on to the fire department pay increase proposal. That is Chief.
John, I don't think that this is any conflict at all, but I mean, as you guys all know, Kelly is on the fire department, and I don't know if that matters in this discussion as far as a pay increase.
To me, Lisa, it does not.
Okay.
Okay, but I mean, the rest of the board can speak for themselves on this.
I don't know legally if
I
that's
think we're
a
probably all in
conflict.
favor of giving this out, so that's just my thought, but.
I don't think this deals specifically with him, it's generic, so I would say
Right.
it's not inappropriate for you to participate. That would be my opinion, but thank you for your disclosure.
I do appreciate that. Go ahead, Chief.
Are you okay with that?
Unless you're the deciding vote for it. So a couple of years ago, we've been dealing with a shortage of night shift firefighters. And when we looked at 5 years ago, they were making a dime above minimum wage, $7.40 an hour. And with the support of this board, we've been gradually getting that up to a barista server. And we were at $9.72 an hour 2 years ago. That was last, sorry. $9.72 2 years ago, and last year we got it up to $12 an hour. But we're still having issues with filling the night shift. And sometimes we have the issue that one firefighter may be on duty instead of the two that we desire, and sometimes their experience is minimal. So to improve morale, to also get the night shifts filled, we just wanted to make a flat rate for firefighters and for the officers, that they would go up to the $16.77 that the daytime and afternoon firefighter currently makes. It makes it a lot easier for us. It puts about $50 more in their pocket per shift, and I think it resolves a lot of our issues as far as staffing. That we've seen some improvement with some 24-hour staffing, and as you know, the district firefighter project that we've been doing, I think this would be kind of a nice icing on the cake, because there is only one or two covering the township, and we have no idea what they're going to face when the call comes in. So it's, I think, a small price to pay, and it will probably result in an increase in the budget, but we can take a look at that, and we can make adjustments, other line items to make that happen. So that's my proposal.
You know, I think this is important, and I think that the firefighters do sleep away from home on these night shifts, and I really don't see this as being a lot of out of the ballpark for their pricing. I still think we're under most of the departments around us. I think that most of them come in at the $19 an hour, the same type of shift. So I'm in absolute favor of this, and go ahead and ask questions, or we can
Yeah, well, I feel the same way. I think the men and women who protect us 24 hours a day in both the police and fire endeavors are owed a great debt of gratitude by us, and I think that this is only fair. The one thing I was going to ask you, though, it looks like the budget increase that for this year that you would anticipate is 20 to 25,000. So you'd anticipate that roughly doubling for next year, only because we're only, I guess, we're 5 months in the 5th month of the year. So that's not your annual total cost.
Yeah,
That's the remaining 7 months of the year, basically.
We always adjust with, salary increases, projected salary increases, and just staffing. So it's been going up about 5% each year. And so with this, I to be honest, I didn't forecast that far out, other than, it would probably be.
I just want to make note that that's a very small amount of money we're talking about spread across the entirety of our department in order to staff adequately for 24 hours a day, and I think that it's, well worth the expense. So I'm looking forward to supporting it.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the fire department pay increase proposal for night shift firefighters as presented in the letter from April 4th, 2018.
Support.
Second.
Go ahead, John.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
On behalf of the firefighters, thank you. The next item is
Let's go to the next item, the fire hose.
I think he covered that at the end of his report, didn't he? On the way out.
Yeah, he got hosed. Okay.
So this is, again, with the ordering of our new engine. We're also going through a ISO, or Insurance Services Office evaluation. We're still awaiting the results of that, and we've been in contact with them in the last few days. The engine one that we currently have will remain in service as a reserve engine, which helps our ISO score, and that was part of their evaluation. So when we do receive our Pierce engine, we are looking to have the hose provided for that. They will also take care of the labor in putting that together at the shop, and to get the all of the hose provided and loaded is $14,650, and they will adjust that time frame for loading based on our anticipated delivery.
What's a new truck without a brand-new hose? What are we going to do, put an old hose on it? I say we have to have it.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of hose for $14,650, taken out of the fire department equipment budget, 977.001.
Support.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Get your hose.
Thank you. Okay, so we've, our stations are 17 years old, and we've just come into some areas at Station 1 where there's a lot of wear on the carpeting. To be honest, I'm not even sure what I'm doing with this one, other than because there were 3 quotes provided, and I'm not sure that everything is apples to apples, and 2 of the quotes are local, and I don't know how that plays into your decision-making. I guess what I'm proposing, and I even brought one of the sample books if you guys want to see like what the LVT, or luxury vinyl tile, is made of or looks like. But what I guess I'm looking at is one of the local vendors. I had been working with him for the last month or so. He spent some time in the hospital in the last couple of weeks, and we have not really coordinated. So if it's okay with you, if we get the 10,000 were to be approved, and I could work with the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer, and just kind of, if you want to pick one after, unless you want me to come back. But really, I'm in the ballpark of just under $10,000 to get the repairs that we want to get. And I'm not making really a recommendation at this point of which vendor to go with.
So this is the large training room, is one of the pieces of this.
So yes, it's the
It's a pretty
training
big
room, it's the watch room, and it's the hallway that is just outside of the watch room.
Seems like a pretty good price for all that flooring.
Yeah, there's, the first one was actually the state bid, the Sealy Group, So they are typically going to come in lower. They're out of Holt,
Lansing.
Michigan, I think it is, outside of Lansing, and the other two are local. So I think everyone was willing to work with us a little bit, 10% discount from Lowe's, and, McNabb was also, working on lowering the number as well.
So you think they'll match the state pricing?
I don't think they'll match it. I think they'll come close, but I don't think they'll match it.
So they'll be better priced than this, because they're about, 10, 12% higher, so they'll reduce it beyond what this is shown, you think?
As far as Lowe's and McNabb?
Yeah.
I believe so. I think they'll reduce it some, but again, making sure that I'm comparing apples to apples. And
Do any of the local vendors have any zoning ordinance violations? Because I know one of them had some, and I would not vote to support anyone that has a zoning violation, because there were past issues, so. My motion would be to approve up to $10,000 per this memo, subject to our internal review by the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer, and subject to whatever vendor is chosen, that they have 0 zoning violations open at this time.
I will support that.
All right.
To go out of the township.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
thank you very much.
All right, now, moving on to the consideration of the Park Advisory Board recommendation to update the Parks and Rec Master Plan as outlined in the McKenna letter, proposed for the amount not to exceed $9,000.
Before we start on this, I don't know if you want to go through this, but if you want to hear this first, we have approved a job description for a new planner. That new planner's job description includes things like this. So while I understand we need this, I think before we spend time going through 3 pages, my motion at the end of either now or at the end of hearing 3 pages will be to table this until we hire a planning director. Because the work needs to be done, but I think a full-time person should be on board and in place and involved with the scope of this, and also have the opportunity to reduce the cost of this either significantly or possibly completely, which is part of the whole mission of bringing somebody on full-time.
Okay.
And this is not a reflection of any quality. I mean, there's no doubt that McKenna has provided very high-quality service to the township and will continue to do so, but I just thought I would say that before we go through this all.
Well, the only problem that I have is that we have some applicants and we haven't got a chance to interview them, and it's still a process. And what if none of them work out?
I think
And
that
then we start all over. But I think that the situation is we have a grant that we need to get, and that's the reason there's a little push on this one. I don't know the entire, what is the grant? We have a specific time?
Yeah, the current plan expires in early 2019. Without a readoption or a new plan, we would not be eligible to apply for the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant in 2019. We applied in 2018, we didn't get the grant, and the MDNR gave us pretty specific reasons why. We appreciated their feedback, but it also kind of clued us in on improvements that we need to make, not just to our plan, but to the application the next go-around. So the proposal here for updating the plan would not only make us eligible, it would address those things that the DNR pointed out in our grant application.
the MNRTF deadline is April 1, so we've got 11 months to get this thing updated. It's not going to take that long. I understand it needs to happen, but we have plenty of time to get this updated, and I think we're behind where I anticipated we would be on this hiring process, and I would hope that a month from now when we're sitting here, we're considering finalists, if we can get to that point. Certainly no later than July, and I would think that we'll know whether we're going to be able to choose someone and move forward or go another direction. And at that point, we still have 8-9 months to do a master plan update, not a rewrite, not starting from scratch. So I'm going to make a motion that we table this for at least 30 days till at least the June meeting, or until such time as a decision's been made with regard to the planning director position.
Are you with what the requirements, what we're looking for in a planner?
We
Oh, a
have
job
already approved a
description.
job description, and we've approved a pay scale, and that was advertised. We received 7 applications.
Yep.
And the 3 of us have not been in town even at the same time for the last month. It's been pretty difficult, but I think there's a pretty high level of commitment from all 3 of us to get together in days, not weeks, to determine who we're going to interview and hopefully bring back some recommendations, certainly some information, if not recommendations, to the board in June. That is my goal.
Okay, now, once we have a table, if we get a second, then there will be no more discussion, and we'll have to vote. So you can either second this motion and table this thing, or...
Well, I guess I'm feeling a little bit unaware of where we are in the process of having a full-time planner, and so I know that the update needs to be done, but if there's if you and, is it Patty who's on that?
Yeah, I think it's the 3 of us, right?
Yes.
I mean, each time that we've had a subcommittee for interviewing, the board has gone with that recommendation, and so I think if there's a commitment to go through that process, I'd kind of like to see that process kind of unfold before we move forward with this, as long as, I don't know how long it takes to do an update. So if it's cutting it close, I'm a little bit leery of that.
Says 6 months in the proposal, to do the update.
Adoption in November of 2018. So I believe we have certainly enough time to wait 30 days and probably enough time to wait 60.
Okay. What do you want to do, folks? Get a second on the table, or do you want to drop this and let's move it forward? Well, we first... we
I'll
gotta get it.
second the motion to
All right.
table.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we'll table it till next month. Okay, moving on, pathway in the park bid results.
Hey. Well, we completed a rebid package this winter of the 2 alternatives in the park. We did bid this project twice in 2017. There were 2 portions that we considered in the rebid package, as well as the most recent bidding in 2017 as well. The base bid was for the construction of the section of the path on the southeast part of the park that is not existing. And then the alternate bid included that portion, as well as widening the existing path in the northwest section of the park. We received 2 bids. The low bid was received by LJ Construction. Their base bid was $176,383.00. And the alternate bid was $357,604. The last time we bid this project, the base bid was approximately $22,000 higher than this. However, these bids did come in, the previous times, more costly than what we had expected, and the project was essentially tabled at that time until further bidding. At this point, I don't know if we would receive better bids with this current construction market. I think the northwest portion is just difficult. It requires a lot of equipment in a small section of space, and that's where you see the bid of the $357,000. That's that portion that's included in there. I'm not sure if the township board is interested in any portion of this project moving forward. If so, I would probably be inclined to recommend the base bid, which would complete the section where there is nothing. The existing path does function. It's not as wide as we would like, but overall, it's really not in poor condition. If you reconstruct, again, you have to meet the American Disability Act requirements, and that's a big part of the grading that's in that project. So I wanted to follow up with this, bring this back to you for your consideration. I'm not sure if it was in the budget. I inquired with Melanie last week, and it was her belief that it had not carried forward to 2018. So.
I don't remember if we put it in there or not.
But I think that they still had monies in their,
And I didn't
in
have
their
that
account.
section of the budget.
left that amount, but we didn't add an additional.
No, we didn't add anything additional, but it was still, yeah, there.
My recollection from just the past meetings was that there was $250,000 that was a budget line item, but that's,
Yeah. And my feeling is too, because we had walked the path, and to go ahead and get that alternate bid, I mean, it's not a 10-foot path, but there's a path, and it's in really good shape, and you have all of these, are they wellheads? What are they?
Well, they're structures associated with the landfill.
Right,
and
so you
they're fixed
can't.
objects, you can't move.
You can't move them, you can't, you'd have to physically go all the way around them, and it's really beautiful back there, so why would you want to disturb that? I mean, it's a really nice path, but it would be so nice to have it connecting so that we have our complete path around the park, so.
Leslie, what was your original cost estimate on base bid?
Let me see.
Because it was June of 2017 that we talked about this last.
Yeah, because it blew us out of water.
The June one.
Because I know it wasn't 250,000, it was much.
The 250 was the original estimate for the
Right.
circle, which we found out was
Very low.
yeah, and that is what was, I
Yeah.
just pulled up the budget as what was carried in 2017 was the 250,000.
See, the base bid I had only at 75,000 with the alternate bid at 388. That was June of last year.
That was your estimate.
That's my estimate.
Okay.
That's
So the
right.
alternate was pretty close,
Close,
actually.
right,
But the base is 2.5 times higher.
right.
Oh,
So I'm
nearly.
just, the other portion of this, if you wanted to move forward with the project, we would have to have an official approval from Republic. I didn't seek this at this time because I wasn't sure if this project would even move forward, but I did want to make sure you're aware of that we would have to make sure we get their approval before any construction proceeds.
I mean, we've been trying to get at least some part of this project completed for a while, and I think let's just get something done. So, even if it's not the whole scope of what would be ideal, and widening the narrow section, I think that we should just move forward with completing a portion around the path around the park.
For the record, the base bid would be 10 foot
Yes,
wide. Okay.
yes.
Oh, good.
Go ahead. I mean, I don't get to call on people, but I'll wait if you want to.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You can call him.
I was just say, from a PRAB perspective, I guess what I'd be looking for is just some sort of definitive thing, because it seems like in the near future we're not going to get anything significantly lower, right? Is that a fair assumption? I know
I
you
don't
can't
think
predict
so.
it, but
It doesn't seem like it's going
So-
in that direction. No.
I guess I just looked for some sort of thing of, do we either complete the circle, or do we say we're not going to do it and let's move on? Because it's been
How far is the perimeter? What would it be? 3/4 of a mile?
Not for the base.
I can hop
to
on
look at the
Google Maps
plans.
and estimate it real quick, but I have no
Just
idea.
Curious.
I think it's under a mile though, yeah.
I think it'd be a nice addition, and, there are those pint-sized marathons that have been, we had one last year, and I think that our park provides a nice opportunity to not have to conflict with, like traffic, if you're trying to run one of those and just be kind of isolated, and to have a completed path, I think would be.
You got boots on the ground coming up.
I don't know if that's coming up this year.
Leslie, the only question I would have about possibly getting something lower would be, would we see any savings if we bid just the base along with the 11-mile pathway completion?
I don't think so.
Otherwise, then, yeah.
I really don't. I mean, you're in two separate sections,
Mobilize
plus
them
that
twice.
project hasn't been going really swimmingly either, so, for different reasons, but, I would say most likely not, because all of the mobilization, you're not, it's not like next door. So I don't think you'd see a lot of cost savings. I wouldn't delay this if the board's inclined to move forward, with any portion of this. I would recommend to do that now or to table the project to some point in the future.
So I guess the question I was going to ask is, when it was a $75,000 project, it was pretty straightforward. I mean, there are many needs. The 11-mile pathway in the 11-mile park, that's a farm field. I mean, we have made improvements to this park. There are other improvements that were talked about, like working on the ball diamonds. I mean, that we've got to spread the resources around to people who enjoy different kinds of recreation. But I guess when I look at this, if it's $176,000 and it's going to get heavy use, then it's probably worth the money over the long haul. But if it's not, and I don't come to the park every day, so I don't know the answer to that. I think we should put the money and prioritize the money in the areas where they're going to get the most use. And it's not just the dollar amount, it's just putting the money where the demand is, I guess. The other question I had, and so I don't know, but the other question I had is things sink up there. Is this pathway going in an area where the ground is unstable to where in 10 years we're going to have potential sinking and
No, it's not on it's outside of
the influence
right.
of the landfill, so it's on good soil.
Right.
So we're going to put it in once, and it's going to last us quite a while.
Yes. And I mean, I understand this has got to be a difficult decision. You've looked at this several times, and, the plans are done. We didn't spend any time adjusting them than adding a revision date on them for this bid. So if it is something that you're not anxious to do, they're done. They can be used whenever you're inclined to build it. Not that I'm trying to sway you not to construct it, but I just wanted to mention that.
I think it would be used quite a bit, but that's just a gut feeling.
There's a lot of people that are up there all day long. It really is. We see
We
them.
get a lot of use in this park.
Really do have a lot of use in the park. It'd be a good thing if
Nice
we.
to have it.
The reason why I brought up what I did, I've had inquiries about marking distances on it and
Oh,
using
sure.
it for
walking,
training
running.
and running and that kind of stuff, so, yeah.
Nice to have it.
Well, do you want to say something?
That is an Eagle Scout project.
Yes.
The only, if we did delay it a little bit, the use question could maybe get a little light shed on it from the master plan update. But other than that, I don't know how
The
we
only
get
thing
anywhere.
is I think we've beat this thing to death. I mean, it's come back to this board how many
Third time.
times? And it's like, if it keeps coming back, it must have traction to do it, okay? And so I guess that's the key. I mean, we brought this back. I'm really actually tired of talking about it. I'd like to get it either done or throw it out. I mean, so, I'd like you to make a decision tonight. And do we want to do this? It's $176,000. I think we have the money in the one fund. I mean, that's not peanuts by no means. But I think I'm with you, John. I think a lot of people use it. I mean, all day long, we watch people come to this park, and they're constantly walking, and I think they would use it.
I would agree, and I think the last time that, when we said we were going to rebid it, the purpose was to bring the cost down.
And it did.
And we did. And
Yeah.
so the purpose to rebid was not to decide whether or not we wanted it. It was to let's rebid and get the cost down. And if that's the case, then let's move in that direction. So I think that I would agree.
And these are the kind of things that we've promised to do as a board. The things of the pathways, the roads, and all these things that when they millaged the fire department, we agreed that these monies could be put to things to improve quality of life in Lyon Township. And I believe this could be one thing that would do it. We put some money in the ball fields, that's another, and I think this is a good thing. So I think we should do it. Let's just quit talking about it. Let's get this path built.
Then I would like to make a motion to, let's see, go with the lowest bidder, is that right?
Mhm.
With,
LJ Construction.
LJ Construction. Gosh, I can't read that.
LJ
Construction with the base bid of the 176,383. Is that correct?
Yep.
Conditional on receiving Republic's approval.
Conditional on receiving Republic's approval.
I will second.
Maybe they
All right.
want to help.
Any further discussion on this? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Let's build us a path.
Good job.
Okay, moving on. This one here, we are in the process of putting together our new personnel policy procedure manual, and I know you have just probably seen it, okay? There was, did you even see it? Was it?
No, we did not
okay.
send it out because
Okay,
we sent
well,
it back to Carol's office for a few tweaks.
There's some tweaks that we made on it, but it is coming, and the reason that we
Get it
put
to
it
you
on
as soon
here.
as we get it, so you have time to read it and digest it, because it's a lot of pages.
Yeah, it's a total brand-new personnel policy that I think covers a lot of the areas that we've been lacking. And they've done a really good job on it, but I'd like to have it in your guys' hands, and you can take a look at it, scrutinize it, and possibly either the next month's meeting or maybe the meeting after that.
If you
we'll
need
go
more
ahead
time.
and get it approved, because it's pretty important, and it has a lot of vehicle policies and things that we've been lacking. There's a lot of things in it, and it's all really good. So we were kind of excited about it. We got our first look at it.
We thought
and
if
it's
we
really
put it
nice.
on here, it would force us to like really make it top priority, and we got this close, and we had a couple more tweaks, so, and then you guys can look at it and tweak it more if need be, so.
So that'll be coming soon, okay? To a computer near
Get it
you.
right out to you.
No, it's exciting because I think that was one of the things we were looking forward to with the.
Well, it hasn't been updated since '99, so.
No,
it's
it has to.
It doesn't look like it.
2006.
I just picked that
So
99
still
out of the air.
Still a
so.
long time.
Trustees are exempt anyway, right?
Yeah, but still, it helps us in the office, and we're hiring new personnel, and it's just nice to have something that would be updated.
All right, but that's all that was about. We just wanted to let you know it's on its way. And then moving on to the items removed from the consent agenda. Chris, you want to go ahead and explain what you
We
need to
have
know?
to make sure that Sean's
Yeah, just
candidate.
Just real quick on the Riverwood bill of sales. I know on those utility easements, we just need to. I don't know if this is an issue, but we have to update them for our new council to be named on the easements themselves. At the bottom, there was the old council was.
Oh, the old
What is-
form.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
It just, doesn't
thank
that
you.
just sends them back to them? It doesn't affect the recording of it,
It shouldn't, but
They still send it back to, yeah.
Well, these really don't even get recorded. It's just transferring the ownership of the water and sewer from the developer to the township, but
Oh, yeah, we
still
did need
should
to
modify
change
the
that.
forms.
Yeah,
They don't
return to,
record them?
gotcha, yep, thank you,
Why don't
Chris.
they get recorded?
Because they run across multi-units, and, I mean, we've never recorded them before. But I think we can talk to council.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Okay.
And then I guess, yeah, that's all I had on that one. So, just
Okay. That's all you got? What about any other?
oh yeah, and then
So we have to vote to approve that, right?
We have to approve it.
yeah. So I'll make a motion to approve the Riverwood bill of sales.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. All right. Time to adjourn.
I had the zoning report.
Zoning report, go ahead.
You can go line by line?
Yeah, I want to read each one live. No, the point of this one is, we have some of these that have been outstanding since like 2011. I don't know if there's even ones prior to that, and there's a lot of repeat issues. I guess I just wanted to try and have a little discussion on is there something we need to do as a board to help close some of these out? What can we do to help to get some of these up? Because obviously we even heard people coming in during public comment about issues. Just looking for ideas that, as a board, do we need to modify some things? Do we need to do anything different to help?
I'll tell you, it's a very tough job.
Oh, no doubt.
It's an extremely tough job, and
He's part-time.
Right.
we
Makes
have
it worse.
We have a zoning guy now that is
Outstanding.
he works with you, but he also issues tickets, okay, which we haven't had in the past. What we had in the past was a zoning guy that would go out and threaten you and threaten you and threaten you and send you a million letters and drive you absolutely nuts, but he never finished the job. So what's happening now is, and as you can see, the zoning reports are getting smaller. He is actually going out and taking care of these things, and he is issuing tickets. And, you know, the gentleman that was here tonight, there's several violations on that piece. And he's been going out there and issuing tickets, but he's also working with him. He's trying to do the best of both worlds. And he's doing a good job, but it's a big job because there was a lot created that weren't taken care of from 2011, as you see. And- and-
He engages with department heads too to try to alleviate a lot of these problems, I notice.
He does. He works
Yes.
really well with and he is part-time. He is part-time. He works what we can, have to try to work things out as much as we can. But when push comes to shove, we're issuing tickets. And he spends Mondays down at the court, and some of the people take it and they pay the tickets and they clean it up, and others he has to issue them over and over. And it's an escalating process. It's tough.
I see Robert Langen on here probably 20 times. How many parcels does that really span? I mean, it looks like it's just a couple of different buildings, but I mean, he's been on here
He
for
has
a couple of years
several properties. He's a very large property owner in the
Right.
township.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Do we need more staff? Do we need more help?
Not sure what the answer is.
I guess I
I'm-
would say if we do, I would like to know because obviously we've got to stay ahead of the curve. And if you need more support, then if we need to
You know
add
what, this
hours
board
to-
supports me perfectly, and I
Some-
appreciate that.
Well, I was just going to ask Lisa, I mean, some of this it has to follow the ordinance, so how many times do you ticket? I mean, you can't throw somebody in jail. I mean, or maybe you can. I don't really know. I mean, I don't know what our,
Court order to get
yeah,
it cleaned up or
exactly.
whatever.
Yeah, so
And we
do
do
you
that.
spend the money and clean it up, or, I mean, I know he's trying not to put people in jail if that's what you're going to be doing, but I mean, you know, again, there are residents also.
Yeah, it sounds like he's following the process and he's taking action, which I think is the first step, and, you know, you have to wait and see and how quickly some of these can get resolved.
And I just wonder too, some from 2011, if they're not complaining anymore, they're kind of on the back burner where new people complaining take the top priority, and these kind of fall off unless someone else calls and complains again. So, I mean,
Well, have
Again.
some of those been alleviated and we just don't know?
I don't know, maybe he needs to update his report and he's busy doing other things, so he has not updated the report and just keeps adding to it.
Got it.
So I can ask him that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right, and if
No,
it's a
tomorrow, Wednesday.
staffing thing, you know, that's one of the things saying, do we need to bring in more help?
I don't know if the law has changed, but in Redford Township, I knew an individual, happened to be my brother-in-law, that kept violating the township's ordinance with all his unused vehicles. And it took about 6 months, but he did nothing about them, and they came and towed his vehicles away and taken to the junkyard, and it was up to him to do something about it after that.
You
I
know,
don't
we have kind of a unique situation in Lyon here, is where we have a lot of residents that's lived here all their life. And we've had a spur of development that has moved next to the rural areas, and the rural people sometimes don't get along with the developments moving in, and it becomes a fight back and forth. And you hear a lot of, I've been here for 100 years and I'm grandfathered in. And it's just a work in progress. That's all I can say. We're trying to manage it at the best we possibly can. Bob takes so many calls. He helps so much. He takes so many calls a day. We are, you know, a lot of them say, why don't you get back to us? I'll take 50 to 80 calls a day. And it's just like, it's a constant fight. And as the population grows, and as the rural areas get smaller, these are gonna get worse and worse.
sometimes you can't give them an answer because there just isn't one. And I don't want to make light of that, but I mean, we have a situation going on right now about why don't we chloride Martindale Road more? Well, we pay to do it 5 times a year. To make this resident happy, this person would maybe like it 8 or 10 times a year, but does the entire township pay to make this one resident happy? So what do you say to that person? Or if they're discharging a sump pump illegally and they want you to fix it, but you're doing it wrong. Yeah, but I've always done it this way. I mean, that's a tough conversation you have with people. And I've stood in people's front yards and...
You write tickets to people who have been doing things for their entire life, and they
Right.
don't understand it. It's there's a lot to it, believe me, and, you know, I mean, I will get, I know that he asked about getting back, I get hundreds of emails every hour.
I was confused on this, was this guy the landlord or the tenant who's violating?
The landlord.
There's a situation.
He
There's
has a tenant,
situation
but
out
he's
there.
filling his backyard of the property he owns with his own stuff, okay.
I think that one's on here.
I have I mean, since we're talking about this, I have kind of a question. I noticed here that Huron Valley Outfitters has an illegal sign, and that advised that a sign was put up without a permit, and that that a citation was issued. So I guess my question on something like that, because I don't know the process, does that mean that in the future, if we have a property owner or if we have a business, are we then made aware for future projects that that they are in violation? Is that something that do you withhold their future development? Can that happen? I guess I don't know the process. I'm just trying to understand it.
He shouldn't be building anything else.
Well, on this
He's here.
particular one,
Yeah.
But
on this particular one, it's another situation that we have where he is built back behind, he's actually putting a sign in an easement, okay? He can't do that. So we talked to him, and he is going to go to try to get a variance for the sign, okay? So we issued him a ticket, and we held the ticket, we adjourned the court date to see if he can get the variance. Now, if he can't get the variance, then he has to take the sign down. And that's just another situation. The last thing we want to do as a township is take down signs of millions and millions of dollars worth of buildings,
Right.
of investments in the township. But
And
if
he is
they're not
working
legal.
with us. His
Oh, okay.
attorneys come in, they've met with Patrick, so there
Oh,
is a
okay.
whole, they are working. It's slow, but they're
Right.
working.
I was just trying, that one just kind of
But that's what I'm
jumped out.
saying. You
So
see
I
all
just-
them on there, and there's all the story behind them
Right.
all. And it's not as easy as going in and it took time. And so we try to go in and we try to say, okay, if you don't do this, you're gonna get ticketed for this start. And we get them out of there. Then we go back and we say, now you have these ordinances that you're going against, so we ticket them for them. We try not to go in and write 20 tickets
Right.
and just, we try to work it out. And it's hard.
Well,
And it's time consuming. Because they may say, okay, we're gonna take care of this, this, and this, and then we actually say, okay, then we're gonna work with you, and then they don't do it. And we go back, and it's
it's a lot
killed
of-
one more month, and it's just a tough thing. Zoning is very tough.
And that helps me understand the process, so thanks. As far as the property that was mentioned earlier tonight, and I did mention that, it is now turning into a dump of people.
It is.
And
We know that.
And,
There's a story behind that one too, and Bob
well-
can tell you.
Well, I know a story behind that one.
But I mean, there is,
But,
and
it's now getting to the point where that big Wednesday, a lot of the trash that is still in mounds has been blowing onto neighboring structure that had been up is now collapsed. And the home that's on the second floor, it's now open.
Yes.
So I don't know if somebody's squatting in there, but, I obviously, since I do live nearby, that's kind of a concern for me, but.
But here's the thing, okay? Now, talk about if you can't force somebody to do that. If you write them tickets and they go to court and the court says, okay, do it, but they don't have the money to do it, okay?
Right.
If they don't, this board could make a decision to spend taxpayer money and take down the buildings and clean that site up. Do you think that's a good decision? I don't know.
You would lien the property and you would get it back when it was sold.
If this board would stand behind things like that, I mean, we could do that. But believe me, to tear that, maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah, and we'd have to look at the ordinance to see.
And I just wanted to, it was something that I noticed in
Lisa,
the list.
we'll get a resident walk in, and because this happened a week ago. Somebody dumped a couch and a TV in front of my house on a dirt road.
Yeah.
Always.
I want you guys to come remove it. Well, I'll get on it, so call the
Right.
garbage or GFL. I mean, that's a tough.
Oh, yeah,
how
I
do
mean,
you
I know
fix
it's
that
not the
right
property's
now?
owner, or the property owner's responsibility. Somebody definitely just drove by and dumped stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was just trying to understand a little bit more of the
Totally
process.
frustrating, and I get mad that somebody would have the gall to do something like that.
Right.
You know,
But back to your point, Chris, I'm not sure there's much we can do other than, you put the teeth in the ordinance and we try to make it stick. But again, I mean, it's tough because some people, they feel picked on, and it's just, it's tough. And again, they're residents too. We just have to work it out.
it's
somehow.
generational too, what you said. People here a long time, and
It's their property.
Yes, and a new way of life, and,
But I can guarantee you, we're gonna do the best we can to clean that up.
I mean, look at the clamp it's had when they moved,
Yeah, I guess the overall point is to see if there's anything we need to do to
Yeah.
help out
I
the
appreciate that.
situation.
I know.
And you know
Think
what?
the same thing when you look at it and you go, this isn't getting any smaller.
I know, it's
I know,
some
it-
6,
yeah.
7 years old, and then,
Well,
you
I
know,
almost feel like it really is someone's not complaining about it, so it's kind of dropped to the bottom, and then the new ones have come on, and that's where his sights are set, because they're crying the loudest right now, and we get that. And if no one's saying anything about this, then they're still here, they're on our radar, and you can't
Right.
really just take them off the
and
list
some of these
until
are
it's
in
done.
fairly visible locations,
Oh, yeah.
so.
And let me tell you the other thing that broadens that
Yeah, that
map.
one on
The other thing that
Road
broadens that
for-
map is we stop and we find one, and he points out 6 others in the neighborhood
Yeah. He's
and
doing
drags
it.
them into the map.
Right.
Buddy.
That's why all the addresses are clustered. And I'm sure he deals with a handful and then a handful more come in. It's an ever, it's a
It's a
cycle.
very tough job, and we have a very good zoning guy, a very good guy.
We'll ask too if he can look at some of these and just say, have they come off, are they done, and you're just not having
I'll
the
try
time
to see what he's got to
Because
clean
we
up.
can help him, Catherine or, any of us can help him in the office to see what we can do to clean up his sheet if that's the case. But if there's something else going on, we can maybe have him come in and report to the board too, if we have to, just
Yeah.
to, because I can't answer it for you either. I don't know.
Yeah, in terms of like going to the drastic measures of actually physically having the township get involved in like removing a structure or something, I guess I'd only want it, I mean, it all comes down to the safety if it's,
Oh, sure.
yeah, I guess.
Oh, I
I
believe
agree.
this one, I believe that one is gonna get to that, and that's why I threw that out there.
It's bad.
I believe it's gonna get to that.
It's
I
bad.
believe we'll probably bring something to find out what your desire is, because I think it's gonna get to that.
Pontiac Trail.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time, I'm sure. A lot of stuff's getting sorted out.
Well, if there's no other comments, I'll make a motion to receive and file the zoning report.
A second. Oh, go ahead.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Oh, Lisa.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Good meeting.